and welcome to the program. I am DEJI360. Now, the biggest talking point in the country today is petrol subsidy removal. Less than 24 hours after President Bola Tinubu disclosed that petrol subsidy was gone as it was not budgeted for from the end of June to the end of the year, Nigerians woke up to sudden long queues at petrol stations across the country. Here now were some of the reactions we got when we visited some of the filling stations to see what things were at the time.
You can see I'm walking on a pedestrian track because I can't afford to take a taxi because the price has skyrocketed. I don't know why our system keep on treating we poor citizens, poor masses this way. The leaders will set up a strategies without any action. Removing the subsidy is not the problem, but what are the strategies put in place to actually help and to actually support we the poor masses that does not have opportunity of flying in the helicopter or using government money to buy the same petrol in our cars?
Actually, I believe the fuel subsidy, the thing is, for something to be better must be worst. I believe the increase of the fuel, though the reaction is bad on with the citizen, but at last we are going to enjoy.
It will really affect the masses. Really affect. Because somebody that is going to work now, if you are entering transportation before, 200 naira, now is going to be 400 or 500 naira. How are you going to cope? And we're only working, there's no increment from the management. So
it's very sad, very bad, because yesterday I had to pay more than I used to pay exactly. And even today also too. So as in, like, I'm spending over my budget, and it's really costing me a lot.
Actually, to say the reality, Nigerians have been expecting this. But the way the something come to us as a shock, when our new swearing-in president just entered, at least supposed to have reserved this thing, at least for a month or 5 days, for the Nigerian at least to enjoy a little bit before he just shock us with this price. And we know when this thing did not removed, when the subsidy did not removed, it's like we are postponing an evil day. But the main thing I want the new president and his cabinet to do is to probe the NNPC itself.
Well, comments there shortly after, of course, a day after the pronouncement by the president. Now, by Wednesday, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited officially issued a petrol pricing regime for different parts of the country, beginning from 488 naira for Lagos and over 500 naira in some other states. Now, NNPC Limited spokesperson Garbadin Mohammed in a statement said the increase in price was an adjustment now to current market realities, indicating petrol subsidy removal. Now, shortly after, the Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, addressed the media on the issue, and this is what he said.
We welcome the decision of Mr. President to announce that subsidy on PMS is over. And this has really been a major challenge for NNPC's continued operation. We have been funding the subsidy from the cash flow of the NNPC since government is unable to defray the cost of subsidy that is due to the corporation. And we believe that this will free resources for the NNPC to continue to do the great works that this company will do for our country, and it allows us to continue to function as a very commercial entity. And we welcome this development. Secondly, we would like to assure Nigerians that we have sufficient supply of petroleum product, particularly petroleum motor spirit, in our country, and there is no reason to panic. We understand people will be scared of potential changes to price of petrol, but that is not enough for people to rush to fuel stations to buy more than what they need. But we are also assured that, we are watching all the distribution networks and support facility. I would believe that normalcy will be restored very soon.
Well, let's discuss this further. I'm now being joined on the program by oil and gas expert and partner Next Year Limited, Charles Majomi. I also have Akintunde Ogunshola, who's an economic and financial expert. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Mr. Majomi. Tell us how important this removal is. What impact is it going to have on the oil and gas industry of this country?
Well, thank you very much for having me. This is an incredibly important development, and in my view, shows a measure of political courage on the part of the new president. You know, over the last few decades, we have had this very crippling oil subsidy regime that at times has taken as much as $800 million a month out of our national budget. And this is money that could have been spent on health, on public sector issues, on jobs creation, that has been whittled away by an opaque and corrupt system. The fact that he is targeting it shows the president's intention to dismantle what has mounted to state capture at the highest levels and has freed up significant amounts of money. I think where he fell short was in not explaining how the transition towards a better Nigeria would best be served by this act. It will undoubtedly bring short to medium term hardships on Nigerians. But I think it behoves the administration to explain how the funds that are going to be saved from this intervention that he has made and how it's going to be expeditiously spent for the social and economic well-being of Nigerians going forward. The palliative that he also suggested of $800 million needs to be explained, I think, more clearly. To my knowledge, there are many unbanked Nigerians who don't hold birth certificates that are the most hard hit by this intervention. And I think we need to understand the palliatives. And like I said, we need to understand what kind of process, what he has in mind in terms of stimulating other segments of the national economy with the savings that we're going to have from scrapping the fuel subsidy going forward.
Okay, let me come to you, Akintunde. You look at the economic impact of this, and you must have had you had some of those we interviewed on the street just a day after the pronouncement now by the president, and people have been talking about the economic impact, and we're beginning to see it. We're beginning to see, for instance, the cost of transport fare go up. We're beginning to see the cost of some other commodities go up now, and that it may get worse now in the coming days. But in spite of this problem now, would you say it makes very much economic sense to remove the subsidy, especially at this time?
Thank you very much for your question. Actually, the subsidy removal is one thing that all economic analysts, all people in the oil sector have accepted that it's sustainable. And we cannot continue to pay all the billions of dollars as subsidy in Nigeria. But the only question, what people are questioning is just the timing, that when is going to be the right time. And the new president of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, announced the removal of subsidy just at his inaugural speech, which is, it was a big shock and a surprise to all Nigerians on that morning when he announced the removal of the subsidy. Yes, the economic effect is biting so hard on all Nigerians as we speak. The price of the transportation of goods and persons have actually, skyrocketed. I can tell you about 300% increase, which is so hard economically on Nigerians. But when we look at it critically, according to the statistics and according to the economic laws and rules, we know that in the short run, which is in a short time, we might actually feel these pains. But in the long run, we are going to get the benefit for it. And we look at the cost and the benefit analysis. Yes, it's going to cost us pain. But the benefit that we're going to get from this subsidy removal far outweighs the cost and the pain that we're actually feeling at this point in time. Yes, what are the benefits? One of the benefits is that we want to increase revenue of the country. Just like you had the GMD of the NNPCL, the company, or NNPCL in Nigeria said. He said NNPC has been financing the subsidy from their own income from the sales of crude oil, and with that, they've not been able to remit any revenue to government. Rather, the GMD said the federal government is owing the NNPCL to the tune of about 2 trillion naira, which is so much, another debt again that the country is actually into. We need to actually bring ourselves out of this debt. And the only way we can bring ourselves out of it is to increase revenue of the country. And one of the ways to increase revenue also is by cutting down costs. And this subsidy cost is what is covering almost about 1/3 of our budget every year. So removing the subsidy, we are going to gain 1/3 of our budget as revenue that we can use to spend on other benefits, other basic amenities that need to be provided to Nigerians. And that's what we're actually yearning for. It's just for Nigerians to be patient with this new government, so that with time, they are going to reap the benefits of what they're actually suffering.
Let me come to you, Charles. I mean, for a very long time now, the argument has been, get this subsidy removed and you could trigger a whole round of investments in the oil and gas industry. So now that it's clear that subsidy is gone, do we expect to see an explosion, if you like, of investments in the oil and gas sector?
I think it will certainly free up a lot of public sector funds that could be invested in concert with private individuals into the much needed infrastructure that we need to develop in order to move our industry forward. I was very, very happy to hear that the president also addressed infrastructure development as a key item. But I should also add that we have to view the industry in the current context, in the current global context. By 2050, it is predicted that most developed economies of the world will have achieved, or at least substantially achieved, net zero, which is a move away from fossil fuels towards renewable energies. So our time limit is very, very short. Foreign financiers and investment groups are increasingly attaching ESG, environmental, social, and governance requirements linked to decarbonization, to increased to investments in fossil fuels. So while it is a welcome development, I think we have to understand it in the context of the changing times for the industry, and we have to be extremely discerning in where we choose to spend that money in order to grow jobs in our economy and move beyond fossil fuels, because it is coming. We have a limited time frame to develop these assets. I think gas as an energy transition fuel should become the focus for government spending, for the fact that it has a value added component that if domesticated and exploited would create the kinds of jobs and social welfare impacts that Nigerians need now. You know, our population is teeming. Young people are coming out of university without jobs. Crude oil has not delivered, because we were export-oriented, has not delivered on the value addition that we need to add to our resources in order to develop the jobs. So I believe it's a very, very welcome comeuppance. I believe that there's a lot of work to be done, not only in terms of deciding where we're going to spend that money in an increasingly restructured fossil fuel industry, but also how we look to the future, how we look away from fossil fuels towards renewable energies in a manner that allows us to meet our national determined contributions, which we agreed to under our Paris Treaty agreement, and how we create jobs and sustain the future for generations that have yet to come.
Akintunde, how is this likely? Because we've had people talk about opportunities inherent in this decision, that it could unleash the creative potentials of Nigerians now in terms of seeking alternatives to fuel. So how can this benefit the country in that direction in terms of unleashing the creative potentials of Nigerians to seek alternatives away from fossil fuel, you know, from petrol?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. One very germane advantage or benefit that Nigerians will have is the exchange rate between the Naira and the dollar. This subsidy of a thing that we've been paying has been gulping a lot of our foreign exchange, our forex. And it has made the forex to be so scarce in the country, thereby making the exchange rate to rise up to 800, 900 Naira to the dollar. So as the subsidy is removed now, the demand for dollar, the aspect of paying for subsidy is going to be taken away, and we're going to now have a lesser demand for the dollar. And then when we have our currency being strengthened, we know that we can now, do more transactions. Local producers, local businesses like the small-scale, medium enterprises in Nigeria can, have value for their money. But talking about alternatives for the fossil fuel, yes, I'm just advising Nigerians that they just need to be patient and, no need to be moving up and down. Some movement that you can do. You can do some meetings, via the internet from your office on phone calls. You don't need to have physical meetings. Experience all that during the COVID-19, where there was no movement and businesses were still moving. So we just need to find a way of how to cut down costs, because the alternative to the fossil fuel was the automotive gas that the federal government tried to bring up sometime back last year. But we saw that it was quite expensive for us to convert premium motor spirit engines to be using those automobile gas. It's quite expensive to convert, but when you're able to convert it, you can actually, enjoy the lower cost. That's actually the alternative that the federal government tried to bring into the sector. But it's just that many Nigerians don't even have that fund to actually convert their engine from the premium motor spirit engines to that gas fuel. So, but in the meantime, it's because we are looking at just a very short time, because we are also looking at maybe in the next 3 months, we are going to start producing this premium motor spirit, kerosene, the AGO, the diesel. We'll start producing them locally. And by doing that, I believe the price of this product will actually drop drastically, and Nigerians will not be able to afford it. So it's just to look for alternatives to cut down costs of moving up and down. That's where technology comes in. We need to invest into the technology industry such that meetings that you need to go to the office to do, you can do it, work from home, you can connect to the internet and do your basic job in the office from home in order to cut down the cost of transporting this one.
So you think Nigerians will definitely adjust?
Of course, Nigerians will adjust. I believe Nigerians will adjust. Just like I said, it's just within a short time. We are looking at the next 3 months when the Dangote refineries begin to come up. So I believe that Nigerians will actually adjust.
Now, Charles, he talked about the Dangote refinery, and that's very key, also very important in the scheme of things when you talk about subsidy removal, because some people have argued that it just would not have made any sense at all to continue to retain the subsidy when you have the Dangote refinery. You also have the other refineries that are being rehabilitated now. They're expected to come on stream before the end of the year. I'm just wondering, now that subsidy has been removed, are we likely to have more people now show interest in refining now that subsidy has been removed and the market is now fully deregulated, so to speak?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Dangote cannot, as a commercial entity, cannot sell his refined products into a deregulated market. Once you deregulate the downstream pricing of products, you have the commercial basis for an industry. Okay? Now, I believe that subsidy and deregulation will create the opportunity for substantial amounts of refining activities that will meet our baseload demand. I think that the deregulation should move into all segments of the energy value chain, specifically for gas, so that we can produce more hydrocarbons to power our power stations, to do all the things that we need to do. So with political will and some courage, understanding that there will be short-term pain, and understanding that Nigerians need to be connected with in terms of what the longer-term plans are for restructuring the economy that will be more beneficial to them from the savings that we get from the fuel subsidy, I think these things form the basis going forward for a very viable refining industry and ultimately a population of people that will come to understand the need and the need for pain in this particular moment moving forward.
And you think in the coming years, with the subsidy removal, we might begin to see an influx of, say, electric cars, hybrid cars, and all of that, you know, as people look for cheaper alternatives?
All of those things will be possible. I think a deregulated Nigerian energy industry will outperform a quasi-regulated or a regulated Nigerian energy industry. And all the things you've spoken about, electric vehicles, the coming of hydrogen, the coming of solar power, the coming of hydropower, all of these things are possible and can be funded if we bring our attention and our policy focus to it. But I think the starting point now is for us to wrestle ourselves away from this subsidy, deregulate the industry, let's move to a market-led pricing structure, and allow the private sector to do what it's always done much better than government, which is to drive the industry.
Let me get a final word from you, Akintunde. Inflation is at over 20% as we speak. And I just can't imagine what the figure would be, you know, when the next inflation figure comes out, maybe say for June, for instance, with this subsidy removal, it's definitely going to look bad. But you think, you know, things might get better after then, that we might begin to see some kind of moderation? Because no doubt at all, inflation figure will definitely go up, say by the end of June when it comes out.
Oh, yes. Yes, we have been sustaining that. Inflation has been a worldwide phenomenon now. Not only Nigeria, even the UK, the America, and Canada, all the countries in the region experiencing an increase in their inflation rate. But for us in Nigeria, we have been coping. We've been having persistent increase in our inflation for the past 13 to 14 months. Talking about the one that is going to come up, yes, it's going to shoot up as at the end of June. But I believe that Nigerians will still cope. And then we have also advised so many Nigerians to try and, you know, try to, instead of buying, you know, petty purchases, it's better you buy in bulk so that you can keep it for, you know, for some time before you go into the market to buy, you know, with a higher price. Yes, these are part of the sacrifices we have to pay in order to enjoy it later. It's better to suffer for a very short time and then enjoy it later. But I can tell you, by the time we start refining our petroleum product locally, you'll see the inflation rate start diving down drastically as well. So it's just a sacrifice we need to pay. Before the end of this year, that's the Q4, we are going to experience our inflation going down because we'll start producing and refining our petroleum product locally.
But the labor unions don't see things that way, and there's even a threat that we might see some strong reactions from the labor unions. You can't rule out a nationwide strike. I'm just wondering, well, how do you think the government should deal with the labor unions?
Yeah, you will recall that the federal government has actually moved in order to borrow about $800 million in order to, you know, alleviate the sufferings as a kind of a palliative to reduce the sufferings of Nigeria. The federal government now need to sit down with the organized labor and draw a roadmap as to how they are now going to bring up a social welfare kind of for Nigerians in order to cushion this effect. And they need to consider the very poor Nigerians, which they are statistically over 130 million people that are multidimensionally poor. So they need to actually come up with a very good social welfare package for Nigerians immediately in order to help them to alleviate their suffering. And I think that's what the labor unions should actually be, holding the federal government to, for them to fulfill the promises of the palliatives that they have promised them in order to cushion the pains of this increase in fuel price.
Okay, Charles, just a final word. How do you think the government should handle the labor unions?
Okay, well, I think let's not ignore another very critical issue. This is a disruptive process. Not only for the labor union, but also for the elites that have been holding this country hostage for generations and that have fed primarily through this system of patronage that brought around this. I think careful stakeholder engagement at this time is essential. The government needs to engage with the unions. The government needs to engage with civil society. The government needs to engage with the industry actors. And they have to come together and come to an epiphany that if we don't come to an agreement, then Nigeria stands to suffer. It's either we get rid of the subsidy or the subsidy will get rid of Nigeria. I think that is a very compelling context to start realistic discussions on how we're going to get rid of the subsidy, how we're going to move forward, how we're going to benefit as a nation in the new context.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Charles Majomi, oil and gas expert and partner Next Year Limited. I thank you very much for coming on the program. And Akintunde Ogunshola, an economic and financial expert. Thank you so much for your time. All right, we'll take a short break, but when we come back, President Tinubu makes fresh appointments. That's what we'll be talking about next. Stay with us, don't go away. Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal. How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.